Hi, everyone. Welcome to our October MetaPWR Hour. I know it's not the last Tuesday of the month. Halloween is next week, and so we decided to do it tonight. So there are several that aren't joining us live, but get to watch the replay. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Alicia Matisse. I am a leader with doTERRA and so excited to be with you. And each month we do these meetings because they've been so valuable just to share the MetaPWR testimonials that we've come across and just really to be a part of this community, that's what's working, what's not working. And so and for new people to just hear about what we have to offer, right? Natural metabolic health is so invaluable and is gaining more traction now that we're talking about it more. And so I'm super passionate about sharing that with others and just bringing everyone into one community. So welcome. Thank you for joining us tonight. For those who haven't been on our call before, the way this goes is it's pretty informal, actually. I like to do that so people feel comfortable enough to share their testimonies. We get to hear from a couple of amazing doTERRA guys that are in our community. And so without further ado, I will introduce Philip Ramos. He is our first speaker tonight. Philip, I guess I met him last month, actually, at the Success Retreat, or Global Success Retreat with Natalie and Andy Goddard. And it was such a blessing to connect with him and hear his journey and story. So thank you so much, Philip, for being here. If you want to, you looks like you've already unmuted and are ready to go. So I'm going to just pass the baton on to you.
And I appreciate that. I do these a lot, so I like to think I'm a pro, right? I know how to unclick and click the things. Well, I'm excited to share. MetaPWR. I mean, I don't know how much you want to share, but I'll kind of give my little spiel and just help you understand, I guess, my journey and what brought me up to MetaPWR. I've always been big into health. When I was 20 years old, I was serving a church mission in Taiwan. Ended up getting super sick and had to come back early. And ultimately, I had a severe case of IBS. They wanted to remove 4 feet of my intestines. They wanted to do a colonectomy, which means I was going to have a colostomy bag for the rest of my life. When I was 20 years old, I was a kid. And that was going to be, they wanted to give me thyroid medication for the rest of my life. And so this was ultimately where it was a pivotal point for me to look at health, right? And look at different things. Now, at the time, I didn't grow up in a very alternative feeling home. However, my girlfriend, now my wife at the time, she very much did. And so that kind of started this whole journey of, natural healing and that sort of thing. And, I'm 45, this was 25 years ago. So, at the time when we started doing stuff like that, it took me about 6 years for me. I never had a surgery, never did any of that stuff. I was able to heal my processes and everything was good and changed my life. But it took about 6 years. Couldn't hold down a job. There was a lot that we didn't know at the time, right? A lot of things that we were experimenting with. And so health became a major part of my life. And I started teaching about gut health. I did a gut health program. I've coached different people along those lines. I've yo-yoed back and forth with dieting. I actually worked in the fitness industry for about 7 years. We wrote meal plans. We had a weight loss supplement that we did. But ultimately, this last year, I felt like, I don't know about you guys, but when I turned 44, I felt 44. Not just felt it, like I felt it deep, right? That was a deep aging process. And I remember watching when the MetaPWR training came out. And it was Dr. Riggs that was talking about every time our glucose spikes, our cells die and we age. And that concept to me totally blew me away because I felt like I had read lots of books, I've done lots of research, understood health quite a bit at a lot of different levels. But I had never understood this idea of every time our glucose spikes, our cells die, we age. That was kind of a totally new concept to me. And so I started looking into this and I started to research some of these things. And I started studying more and more about MetaPWR. And I had this, I don't know if it was an inspiration, it was just this thing inside me that was like, wow, I needed this. Like, I really need to understand this the more and more I looked into it. And so Laura Jacobs and I'm on Laura Jacobs' teams. We're super close, which is why I was able to speak with at Natalie Goddard's event. And her and I began just to experiment different things. And she was reaching out to me. She was saying, Philip, what are you doing? How is it working for you? And I'm like, oh, I'm doing this. I'm adjusted this. I'm teaching this. And so I started coaching some of, people with her and other people. And it just turned into this thing because of what I was learning about, and more importantly, how I was implementing it. And so I remember it was, I took a picture. So now I'm like, sure, a lot of you guys, right? Health sometimes is a 4-letter word that I'm not excited to approach, right? I am more frustrated and angry than I am empowered and excited. And this was kind of at this point, right? I just turned 44. I was like, I don't want to feel this. So I took this picture on October 4th. Hold on, let me adjust this slide so that give it a little. So I took this picture right here on October 4th. And, and when I took this picture, I'm sure you guys have taken pictures before. I had this idea of, that's it. I'm going to the gym. I'm doing the thing. Lights out. Forget about it. Here comes Philip, right? Well, like I said, I worked with a weight loss company, and we sponsored actually some IFBB pros. And it was a big part of our business. And so I worked out with these guys. I went on photo shoots with these guys, and I did this transformation with them. And we called it, it was like a 12-week transformation program that we built. But I'll tell you what, I hated it. Like, after that, I went to the gym. I was going to the gym with these guys and, fasted cardio, working out. I got great shape. But I was about 3-4 months after that, I didn't step foot in the gym. And this was almost about 8 years ago now. I haven't stepped gym, and I didn't want to ever go back, because I had this idea that health and fitness was this not fun journey, right? It was an ugly process. And so even though I took this picture with all intention to go lights out, I didn't at all. I'm not going to lie to you. I did not. In fact, it was like a week after I took this picture, I was doing push-ups at home, pull-ups. I'm like, yeah, never mind, right? And I just kind of forgot about it. Well, my son, and he's 20 now, and he's been, we've been doing some push-ups and pull-ups and different things together. And he's like, man, Papa, you looking great. I go, really? And he goes, yeah. And so I flexed, and this is what the picture was right here. So this picture I actually took in March. It was the beginning of March. It was the first week of March of 2023, okay? Now, what was super crazy about this, let me help you guys understand why I was so pumped about this. So first off, I looked at the picture and I was like, wow, I do feel good, right? Now, this right here, the reason why I put limited budget is for a very specific reason. Now, for those of you that have been around doTERRA or been around certain people, there was this concept of super using. I don't know if you guys have heard of the idea, right? People were doubling their collagen, tripling their collagen. People were doubling the assist. Now, as I'm looking at this, I am not just am I looking at this from a personal, how does this work for me? But I'm also looking at this from a duplication network marketing perspective. Is it very realistic, without LLV, without all the other great supplements, all the oils, can someone feasibly afford to take $300 worth of 2 products a month on top of all the other? That to me, that didn't sit right for me. So for me, I was like, what? I wanted to just I was going to do 1 assist a day. I was going to do my soft gels, and I was going to do my my advantage, just 1. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. Now, when so part of what probably made my 44-year birthday it was so bad was actually the morning of my birthday, I fractured my ankle getting out of a trailer. And we were going to go on a hike. We were going to go on a run, my wife and I come out of a trailer. I fractured my ankle, and I was on crutches for about 10 weeks. And I wasn't able to start running till April after I took this picture because of my ankle. So during this time, I didn't go to the gym. I did, again, pull-ups and push-ups, maybe consistently twice a week, nothing crazy, okay? But what was crazy was when I took this picture here, I remembered this picture that I took. So this was my after in 2015. Now, the 2015, this was strict food. Like, I'm talking strict food, right? These are IFBB pros, people that get on stage at 6% body fat. The workouts were crazy. I was so caffeined out of my mind. I was blitzed out of my mind 24/7 because of our product. Fasted cardio. I mean, it was what we tried to do was so unrealistic in terms of how we're trying to duplicate this in 12 weeks that, again, it caused a lot of burnout with me as well as other people. Yet, when I look at this picture now, was I would say more shredded here? Yeah, for sure. But this is 8 years difference with not even remotely the same type of exercise, food, and all these different things. And what I learned about, what I really studied about was this idea right here of mitigating glucose spikes and really how the assist works. And this put me on this journey to where everything I teach now, everything I work with people now is helping them understand the power that not just obviously MetaPWR, but the idea and the concept. When Dr. Riggs says every time our glucose spikes, our cells die, we age faster. It's part of what happens, with it's detriment to our fat cells, or to our muscle mass. It's just, I believe it just, I don't want to go into different things because I'm not sure where everybody's at, but it creates a host of problems. And so this right here was probably the greatest testament for me in terms of the power of metabolic health, not the power of necessarily the gym. Now, just to give you an example, during this time, this 2015, Philip, I didn't touch, bread. Like, I did, was very low carb, that sort of thing. 2023, Philip, though. So I make my own sourdough bread. I have a sourdough that's 7 years old. I probably, I would say maybe 30% of my diet is sourdough bread. That homemade, I grind my own wheat. So this is not no bread, Philip. This isn't a low carb thing in order to mitigate glucose spikes. I didn't do keto, nothing along those lines. In fact, I'm a big believer because of gut health, beans, broccoli, quinoa. I would say way more vegetables than I ever did meats. I just understood the rules of mitigating glucose spikes and was able to create this experience. So for me, part of why Natalie and Laura asked me to talk and speak about these things, because this right here, where it says I chose to pivot, like it wasn't just I chose to pivot with MetaPWR. I chose to pivot with a totally different health belief system that opened up my eyes to real health. I mean, the people I coach now are in their 20s, people that I coach in their 60s, men, women, people that have had short-term struggles, long-term struggles. And it's fascinating the concept that MetaPWR can teach us. And by teaching people how to duplicate in their lives, the results that they can experience. And so for me, it's been massive. It's been transformational. It is something that, again, when I chose into it, I tiptoed, because it was such a new idea, new concept. I didn't even know what to trust because I was like, I was more confused than anything. But once I looked into it, I did more research. I understood what they were really talking about. I understood really, the power. I remember one time Laura Jacobs said, Philip, she said, the magic is in the MetaPWR Assist. And I go, the magic? Because everybody's going crazy about collagen, right? Everybody's going crazy about the need for collagen, all these different things. But when she helped me understand that, and so now Laura Jacobs and I mean, we go back multiple times a week. Hey, Philip, what are you doing? Or how's it working for you now? Or what have you adjusted? What do you do things? Because the magic behind this process is when we talk about, anti-aging. I mean, this is the ultimate anti-aging. I'm 45 years old and I've never felt this good in my life, not even close to what I felt like when I was in 2015. I feel better than when I was in my early 20s. I feel better than I ever have in my life. And I owe it all to not just the MetaPWR system, not just the collagen, but even the concepts that I learned from it. And then I'll just add this. Once you understand this and you start to exercise some of this, my experience, I've been taking LLV now for 3+ years. My experience with LLV now is dramatically different than it was. I almost, when I teach, I use a concept like, imagine if every time our glucose spikes, we're starting these little fires, inside of our body and we're creating problems. And now we're putting in supplementation, we're putting in LLV, we're putting in all these things to go in there and put out the fire, right? Rescue us. But when you stop, spiking throughout the day and you mitigate these spikes to now they're just gentle hills, all of a sudden you're not creating fires. So the supplementation you put in your body, the things you do, all of a sudden can do an incredible amount of work, right? They can really do some amazing stuff. So anyways, that's I don't know. Yeah, that's me in a nutshell. That's my story in a nutshell there.
Oh, thank you so much. A couple of things. You've never been on our call before, so welcome. We have talked about some of the things that you have mentioned briefly, but one of the things that I would like to ask if you would like to share is, as a coach, and I also do the same thing, kind of coaching people through this, because for those of us who have gone through that training, it is top notch, it's free, and we've shared the link before for other people to go through. Some people don't understand it and that sort of thing, and that's why we do these calls, right, to talk about some of those things that we've learned. So for you, could you share your regimen that you have found that's been helpful for you? And then secondly, will you share what you have found through coaching other people, and some helpful tips that may help some people?
Yeah, for sure. So a couple different things, and again, approaching health, because I've done gut health and I've done the things before, fitness coaching. I think a lot of it is that people have this idea of extremes, right? So it's either all or nothing. And so the idea that in order to mitigate glucose spikes or get on a weight loss program, often people go to an idea of keto or, no carbs and these things. And so what I've done is really try to simplify the complicated, right? And break it down into ways so what I do is I teach people, for example, I teach people food orders. It's one of the tips that I share with people, that I take their Thanksgiving dinner, their Christmas dinners, we're getting close to holidays, and I do this in my classes. And I have them put everything that they want or they would normally eat on their plate. And then what I just do is I teach them to eat it in a specific order. And by doing this little simple thing, you're mitigating your glucose spike anywhere between 40 to 70%. So you can eat the same foods without having the same reaction. Now, this doesn't take away the calorie effect of it. This doesn't take away necessarily the macronutrients of it, but it does change the way it reacts inside of your body. So that's one thing that I do to teach people, to help people see that it isn't about giving up bread. It isn't about giving up your favorite treat. Isn't it about giving up your Sunday thing? It's just about understanding the rules. And I teach people the rules behind mitigating glucose spikes and then the system that can follow that. So that's one thing that I really try to teach for people, is to help them understand that this isn't about extremes. What I want to teach you is how to create a lifestyle for you to enjoy. Now, can you make adjustments along the way? Of course. When I started, I just got better and better. Like, I remember my wife, she read this book, you probably have heard of it, Glucose Revolution, right? And when my wife read in there that she was talking about these different things and used broccoli, right, to basically mitigate glucose spikes. And for those of you who don't know, I'm going to do just a little bit of information here, a little science, but you have soluble and insoluble fiber. Soluble fiber, which is what you get out of avocados, broccoli, cauliflower, you can get out of carrots. Soluble fiber actually breaks down and creates a gel inside the small intestine. And so when you eat that first, the reason why food order is so important is because it actually slows down. So think of it in terms of, let's say if I were to take a bite of pecan pie, like I love pecan pie, right? It's my jam. But if I were to eat my piece of pecan pie first before I eat the rest of my meal, I'm allowing this red sports car to hit, to hit the freeway at 3 a.m. with nothing in front of it. And it's going to get inside my bloodstream quicker than anything, because there's nothing stopping it once it gets into my small intestines. But if I eat my soluble fiber first, then all of a sudden I create this gel-like process and I slow it down. It slows it down by almost up to 70%. So now it's like throwing that red car during rush hour traffic between 4:30 and 5:30. It's not that I miss out on the pecan pie. I still enjoy it. I just do things in an order to slow down how quickly it gets into my system. Plus, I'm not eating more. Also, by doing that, you also eliminate cravings. So that's the main thing that I teach people to help set people up to win from a mindset perspective, that, hey, this is something that we're going to do and we're going to turn this into a lifestyle. This isn't spend 90 days with me and then I'm going to push you off the cliff and hope you fly, right? Kind of thing. As for my own routine, so every single day now, let me say this. So I've gotten better, right, since when I first started. So I want you guys to know that. I'm just telling you my routine. That doesn't mean go out there and do what I did. I had to build up to this. Okay, I had to build up to this. So for myself, because of the research that I've done in terms of mitigating glucose spikes, I'm a big intermittent understanding intermittent fasting, and so I'm a big follower of intermittent fasting. So I don't break my fast until about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Okay. So I break my fast at about 2. I stop eating roughly right around between 6:30 and 7. That's when that's what it looks like for me. I always break my fast every day with broccoli, with avocado, with eggs, some fresh olive oil, and some salt. Okay, that's how I break my fast. And so very specifically, I'm going to get all the soluble fiber from that. I'm going to use the fats to slow it down as well. Going to help my body feel more fuller, right? And that's my routine. That's how I break it every single day. Okay, without a shadow of a doubt. Later on, I usually eat beans, black beans, quinoa. Maybe I'll have a little bit of protein sometimes. I always take my assist 30 minutes before that meal. Always take my assist 30 minutes before that meal. And I also add apple cider vinegar before that meal as well. Okay. So again, something to look into if you haven't, looked into that. Really beneficial. When I wake up in the morning, the first thing I do is actually have apple cider vinegar, but in I would say about 12 ounces of water. And I also do that same routine before I go to bed. I take my collagen. Now, people are different about the collagen, and I would encourage you to figure out what works for you. Some people think and believe it breaks your fast. And I think it just really depends on what your body's doing and how your body's responding to what you're doing. I would really consider that before, because I take it. I've tested myself. I've done some hacks, and did some different things and tested how my body responds to collagen. For me, it doesn't break my fast. And so that's how I've done it. So I do that right after I take my apple cider vinegar, about 30 minutes. I wait, I take my collagen. I actually add some salt to it as well. For those of you guys, do some research into some good salt, super important for you to hydrate in the morning. And then I do my vitamins. I do my full LLV, my PP Restore, of course, right? All the vitamins, adaptive, all that good stuff. And I take all of that in the morning. Then I eat again at 2. Then I'll have my later carb meal later on in the day. And then any snacks that I have, like I'll eat bread. I'll eat a couple slices of sourdough after my broccoli meal. Maybe I'll have a slice after. That's kind of my dessert. That's how I treat my dessert. Sometimes we'll make homemade cookies or something like that I'll eat, after that. So I by no means I'm not limiting carbs here. I'm not doing any of that. There was a time where I was testing that, but I enjoy teaching people the value of food order. I enjoy teaching people the value of veggies first. I enjoy teaching people the value of eliminating their cravings throughout the day, and that by doing certain things you can eliminate some of that. So that's kind of that's where I'm at, and that's what I choose to follow. Now you can go to more of a keto-esque, high protein, fat type of thing and do some of the same processes. However, you're missing out on a lot of the great benefits of veggies. Plus, you're also missing out on what it would look like to create this into something long-term. For me, this is something this is a train, I guess, I'll never get off of, because I never have to get off of it, if that makes sense.
It was so fascinating to me. You speak to a lot of the glucose spikes and all of that. I have shared my personal information. My husband and I both did a continuous glucose monitor for 2 months. So we were able to track it. And so he was completely different from me. And so when I say that the MetaPWR system, when they named it Personal Wellness Realized, they really did name that for a reason. We are so different when it comes to glucose spikes and all of that. It's crazy fascinating to me how different we can all be. But when it goes back to the glucose revolution, which is something that we read as well, and so I teach that as well, it's highly valuable information. And when you see that, put to the test for yourself, it is like learning yourself in such a different way from the inside out. And it's been like life-changing for me to see, okay, what, like you intermittent fast and that works for some people. Whereas for me, I was crashing at 9:30 in the morning and I couldn't but one small piece of sourdough English muffin, just a half of one with avocado and an egg and sprouts, like that, like sustains me like the rest of the day. So it's really interesting to hear. But so thank you for sharing all of that, Philip. I really appreciate it. It's just so powerful to hear from somebody else who's, highly passionate about the same things, right? And so when we get us all together, it's like, it's so exciting to share this with others. So thank you for sharing. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
For those who don't know, I had a couple people ask, what is the food order in the Glucose Revolution, or you can follow her on Instagram, the Glucose Goddess. Very, very great information. And I know, like I said, for the new people who are on this call, the food order is super valuable because when you put something in your mouth, what hits your system, first, right? Like Philip was saying, and, eating your greens first is always her recommendation. So eating your vegetables or a green salad, which makes total sense if we think back to olden times, right? When they actually did stuff like that. And then like I like to say that our culture kind of has taken that away when we, go to restaurants and you see bread on the table, and what's that going to do to our glucose levels if you eat that first? It's going to hit your system the hardest, and no wonder why you're hungry. And then you're full, and then you're hungry, and then you crash later, right? Like if you want that bread, wait, put it aside or ask them to bring it at the end of your meal. And so some of these changes are just very valuable. And then you eat, your protein and then your starches and fats. And then, if you need a sweet at the end, she always says to eat it last. And so that's kind of that the full picture of what that looks like. And so if you start implementing that for yourself, I think, so many people would see changes. That's only one of the hacks that she talks about. Philip mentioned the apple cider vinegar, that she likes to say, use a straw in the water, drinking it with water and dilute it. I mean, she's so fun to follow because she does give you all these, creative ways. Like, if you go to a restaurant and you need to bring it in a flask and then mix it with your water and put some ice in it and stuff like that. But it's just fun. But it is highly valuable. And another thing, a glucose hack, not to like spoil it for everyone. Like you really should get the book either on Audible or read it because it's so good, like life-changing good. Is that Tanya has talked about on this call before, is if you're going to eat your rice, make sure that you cook it ahead of time and put it in the fridge, and then when you reheat it, it doesn't hit your glucose levels the same. So that's super valuable information as well. So anyways, there's so much to it, you guys, and that's not the hacks are great, but that's not what this call is about. But we love to incorporate all those for the people who may not have time to read that book yet, but it is highly valuable. So our next person who's going to share is Jason. If you'll unmute. Jason has had a phenomenal testimony that he shared last night on social media, and I was like, will you jump on our call tomorrow? Him and his wife, Lynette, have been on our call before, kind of, I think, maybe toward as you were still figuring things out. Yep. And that sort of thing. So thank you for joining us tonight, and feel free to just jump in and share your testimony.
Perfect. Sounds good. Thank you so much for inviting me back. It's, to be able to kind of just see results is just phenomenal, because sometimes on a daily basis, you don't really see things, right? You don't really know the progress you're making. And I've had these pictures somewhere on my computer. I couldn't even find them. So like last night, I was just like, you know what? I got to go find those pictures and let's go take some new ones. Where am I at now? I don't even know. And I could tell the numbers on the scale. I can tell, my belt is tighter. I can, I got to latch it down and all that kind of stuff. But again, just kind of that overall picture I didn't get. So I'm going to share that here in just a second for you guys. But I kind of approach things from a completely different perspective. Well, not necessarily completely different, because I think it both involves mindset changes, right? And so for me, I kind of approached it from a mindset perspective, then rather than like a very specific protocol of diet and things of that nature. Yes, I'm watching sugar. I'm testing my blood glucose all the time just so I can understand. If I wasn't really sure what I ate at a restaurant, that I can understand, well, maybe that's not the best restaurant to go to if I'm spiking real hard, right? Things of that nature. So I kind of fine-tuned in that regard, and I still do that on a daily. That's such an important thing to do. But for me, I approach it from more of just my belief system about food. It's my belief system about myself and how I need to operate so that I have the energy I need. I don't have the brain fog throughout the day. I've got the energy that carries me throughout the afternoons, and really just looking after the results that I wanted to produce out of this, that I hadn't been achieving with other companies, other products, things of that nature. That the second I really jumped onto this, which is, again, like you mentioned, when we came in here, I was really kind of just getting started, and I was already seeing such massive tangible results. Let me go ahead and share my screen. That way you guys kind of see that as well, just kind of the overall journey here. So for me, I'm a disabled combat veteran. I did 2 tours in Iraq. And so I did a lot of my care through the VA, and that's not always the best system in place, right? So I've battled with them for 15 years. I got out in 2007 after my second tour in Baghdad, but I knew last year that I wasn't in the right place. My stress levels were through the roof. My corporate job pretty much sucked. So the stress was just overwhelming in that regard. And I wasn't eating according to what I knew I should be doing. And so that obviously culminated into where I finally got an appointment with the VA. It was in December when I was like, you know what, I'm just done. I need to go see the doc. Let me see where my numbers are at. Let me see where I'm at. And it took 2 months to get an appointment. So in mid-February of this year, weighing in at 268 pounds, my A1Cs were 9.2 with a 286 glucose reading on my lab results that day. So that was a slap in the face, because I've encountered this before. In 2010, I was originally diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. And back then I approached it with a very strict diet control and shifting how I did things, and, introduced myself to protein shakes and things like that, that allowed me with supplementations that I was just getting at the store, really allowed me to lose about 85 pounds. And I went from my A1Cs in the 12s all the way back down to a 5.5. And the VA doctor in 2012 basically said, hey, yeah, I can't keep this diagnosis on your records. And so he, of course, was careful not to say you're cured. But I knew that there was a way to deal with that. And I knew there was a way to balance sugar levels, my glucose levels, and eat healthier. And I had lost track of that. And so there was, like you see on the top pictures there, in February of this year. And I felt it too, right? Like I knew that I was off kilter, so to speak. And so, the first thing I did was rein in the diet side. I reined in, identifying right away that, most of the coffees I was drinking, because I'm not a black coffee drinker. I'm a creamer with some coffee to it, right? I had to identify things that I could do immediately to shift that side of it. And I was seeing some results with that, but it definitely wasn't fast results. It wasn't really drastically reducing my glucose numbers as much as I'd wanted to. So Lynette, of course, was my wife. She was just tearing up and doing amazing things with building her doTERRA team, and we were trying new products all the time. And so she had started building up a small inventory of all the MetaPWR products. I'm like, okay, well, if you've got some, then I'll give that a whirl. And so I started in June of this year. And at that point, I had barely lost 9-10 pounds in June. So from February to June, I really just wasn't seeing significant differences. My glucose numbers in June were in the 190s still, sometimes 170s. On a fairly consistent basis. So I was making improvements, right? It's better than the 286s and 290s that I was seeing. But at the end of the day, I needed to do a lot more. And so I just kind of continued the same path of just monitoring diet, figuring out what's good, what's not good when I'm out and about. My corporate job, sometimes I take clients out to meals. So I'm trying to be conscious in that regard. And then I introduced myself to the intermittent fasting feature of it. That was a huge shift as well. But the biggest of all, hands down, was the MetaPWR, and really getting consistent with the entire supplement base. And for me, I was the guy that's like, you know what, I'm gonna throw that $300 a month at this and do this in that regard. because I knew I needed an entire base set of supplements like the Lifelong Vitality. I needed to get that back on track because I hadn't been on a base set of supplements like that for almost 8 years. So for me, I knew I needed to get back into that realm. So I started on Lifelong Vitality actually in February, March timeframe. But ultimately, when I started with the MetaPWR system in June, that's when within a week, literally within a week, I started seeing my glucose numbers dropping from the 180s down below 110 and down below 90. And I'm like, whoa, what is happening all of a sudden, you know? But I knew I needed consistency. I wanted to see this over time as well. So I continued forward in that journey. So my protocol, basically, I would start my mornings early, of course, like I do for work, and take Lifelong Vitality, the Mito 2 Max, take that as well in the morning. And then I take the collagen with the doTERRA fiber. That to me helped it flavor wise. But at that point in you know, in my journey, to me, flavor doesn't matter anymore. Results do. So I kind of chuckle when folks like, oh, this doesn't taste good or that doesn't taste good. I'm like, well, is it healthy for you? Is it right? And is it producing results? Like that's the mindset thing, in my opinion. So I was able to just kind of look at that in that regard, but I needed the fiber as well. So all in all, that's kind of what I tossed in there. And then of course, with PB Restore coming out just recently, that's what I hopped into as well. So that's my basic daily regimen. So when it came to meal times, of course, the assist was absolutely critical to that. I would do 2, sometimes 3 capsules if I knew I was at a restaurant that I just couldn't trust, but I was with my clients for work and it was what it was, right? That pasta plate was good, but you know, that's what I did. And again, the results were absolutely phenomenal. And again, maintaining consistent balanced glucose numbers with the occasional spike when I cheated with a coffee I knew I shouldn't, right? I think that's kind of a common theme that I saw in the last 6 months or so. But again, that's an area to continue to work through and see improvements on. And so getting back on the scale, yesterday, 233, literally lost 35 pounds in this time frame, and going from glucose numbers in the 260s or rather 280s and 290s down to you know, averaging between 80 and 110 is kind of what I'm seeing on a consistent basis, again depending on what I'm eating and how I'm approaching my day. But for me, I think the biggest thing I wanted to emphasize on all of this was the biggest factor, I think, that I've applied in my life, both back in 2010, that I'm applying back in my life again now, that I applied in my life when I was in the military. And that's just simple discipline. Discipline is such a powerful tool in our arsenal that I think a lot of times we forget about, and how quick that can shift our mindset, our attitudes, and then therefore our behaviors and what we're doing. Because at the end of the day, you know, the big quote that I love, that I talk about all the time, and I do life coaching as well. I focus more on the trauma side of things and the mental health side of things. But, you know, ultimately, when the pain of change finally overcomes the pain of where you're at and the pain of where you are, that shift, that crossroads that you encounter yourself, because ultimately when you're sick and tired of being sick and tired and you want to be on the other side of that freedom that you're seeking after, the only way you're going to get there is through discipline. And I've had a lot of people like talk about, well, what's discipline? Is it, you know, is it just all the things that you do? And it's like, no, not really. It's discipline is actually the mindset part of it. All the things you do are a byproduct of your discipline. Discipline is really doing the things you know you need to do, even when you don't feel like doing it. And so when you implement that kind of discipline and saying, okay, you know what? I am going to pass on coffees, you know, or I am going to shift my diet, or I am going to be consistent on MetaPWR and my supplements, and be consistent with the lifestyle that isn't just the fad or just this thing I need to do in this season, and I'm going to go back to what I used to do before. But really looking at it in that regard, it changes everything about your beliefs about your diet. It changes everything about the beliefs of yourself even. And you'd be surprised the progress you can make in such a short period of time. For doctors, most doctors would be just astonished with numbers like this, right? And they wouldn't understand it. And I know that my VA doctors 10 years, 15, 12 years ago, they were saying the exact same things. Like, how did you do this? You know, going from that season back in 2010 to 2012, when I was on 2 different types of insulin shots that I had to do 3 times a day, metformin, the whole 9 yards. My glucose numbers were in the 600s. You know, like I said, A1Cs were over 12. So for me to see those numbers, and in 6 months of changing my diet back then, and my doctors were like, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Well, I changed my diet and I started on some supplements, and I hadn't even started working out." And mind you, I haven't worked out yet. I just started back at the gym this last week. So they just couldn't believe it. They was like, "I don't understand." And I'm like, "That's fine. You don't have to understand, but the lab results are there. You see the scale, like we know that it's real." So for me, those are the key things that were critical to where I'm at now. Now I'm excited about the next phase that I'm hoping for, of toning up, getting back in the gym, and actually seeing a little bit more fine tuning in that regard, and just again, just augmenting and growing with this health journey of making it that lifestyle and seeing what that can do. I'll turn 46 in December. So for me, yeah, hitting my 40s was hard. It was really hard because, again, I wasn't doing the right things that I knew I could have been doing and should have been doing. And so I'm just grateful again for the MetaPWR system in and of itself, for doTERRA as a whole, because the quality and the purity is so there. Like I said before, I've tried other companies, I've tried other products, I've been involved with a lot of different things that might have short-term quick results, but the long-term just never was there. And so I'm excited about seeing this and seeing where it's going to go from there.
Is in the pudding as far as pictures, right? A lot of
Yeah.
times I tell people, take the pictures even though you're not going to share them, because they're at least for you, right? And I seriously feel that, as far as this goes, right? Like because that's what keeps me going. When I, like, the scale's not right, when the scale is like still 5 pounds up, or if I'm lost 3 pounds, and I'm like, oh, this is frustrating, right? And even now, like, through this, I still have a long way to go. But yet when I take a picture and I'm like, okay, I can compare them and I can say I'm on the right track, right? And that's what a
Yep.
lot of people need in this, is it can take a long time. Look, these changes that we detrimented ourselves with didn't happen overnight, right?
Absolutely.
Changes aren't going to happen overnight. But what's incredible is when you start to track them and take the pictures, and some people will measure, and I'm terrible at measuring, although I do have my measurements. It's not something I compare often, but I do compare my glucose levels, and I do compare the pictures. So and I just say, you can see significantly the differences in the pictures, and those are the fun ones, when you can start to see the changes as far as adding in the workouts. That is
Oh yeah.
as well, because I've never had muscles, right? And then I'm like, oh, there's starting to be something there, like, okay, that's kind of cool. So super awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely. And to me, I want to support that concept as well, as far as the pictures are concerned, because sometimes the scale doesn't represent what the inches are losing, right? And I think for me, I saw the inches first, and then I started seeing the scale go down afterwards. And so for me, I've lost a combined 11 inches between my arms, waist, thighs, the whole 9 yards, and 4.5 of that inches was just in my waist alone. So for me, those are sometimes the bigger ones to do. But if you can think of it and do those pictures and just park those somewhere, because like I said, I had them somewhere, I just didn't know where I had them on my computer, and it literally took me 30 minutes to just go through all my files and all the tens of thousands of pictures I've got, and finally found them. But I definitely want to encourage you guys in that regard. And sometimes the scale isn't always your best friend in the beginning of your journey, but it's not supposed to be your best friend. It's just supposed to give you that reality check, and just watch those inches and consistently do the routines that that are going to work, and you'll see those results.
Yeah, thank you so much. I like to say that the scale is only one way to measure. There's many more ways to measure, metabolic health as a whole than just, weight loss, because this isn't just weight loss. It is so much more than that. And so that is for real. The best part about this is just us educating people on the umbrella of what metabolic health is, because that is what is necessary in our this health world that we live in right now, that we're in a crisis. And it's truly bringing that to light. And okay, it is an umbrella. Weight loss is one small piece of that, and yet here we are talking about glucose and all of these things that fall under that same category. So Thanks, Jason. Appreciate it. I had a couple questions that I just want to touch on. And as if somebody else wants to share, feel free to chime in and raise your hand or put it in the chat. But if we're not, I'm just going to keep talking about the things that are helpful for some of the comments that I have had. My continuous glucose journey we did with Levels Health. It is pricey. It was, I think, $198 for the app fee, which is a 1-year subscription, and then it's another $198, I believe, or something close to that for the continuous glucose monitors. You put them on. They do have, I mean, you get access to a whole world of incredible information, and that's what I try to base some of my information that I share on YouTube, my YouTube channel about, is some of that information that I get from them. So it's highly valuable information as far as glucose and all of those sorts of things, and our metabolic health. But so if that's not something that you can pay for out of pocket, I know some doctors, it's not, affordable and that sort of thing. Some of them actually are starting to get better about prescribing it to people who might not be diabetic. So check with them. They are trying, and it seems to be working better. If you check back in with them and say, hey, I want proactive healthcare, and I really feel like this is, I'm on the right track with this. I want this. They'll push the prescription forward. So we've had several in our town do that for people. And so the word is starting to get out that people want proactive healthcare in this way. And that I am so excited about that. I don't know about you, but so many more people need that option to be able to have that for themselves. If you don't have that for yourself, going to the store and getting, one of the finger prick things, with the, all of the stuff, right? Whatever they're called, testers, you can buy that and you can just do it multiple times a day. It will still give you your glucose reading. So you know what your morning is, you know what your midday is, you know what your afternoon is. You might not see all of the trends, but you can certainly track some of those trends for yourself. So it's so helpful. I didn't realize that I could just go get one of those, right, from the health food store. And actually we did get one so that we could test it along with the continuous glucose monitor. And so for whoever asked that question, I hope that's helpful, because not everyone can afford one, but you still have access to that information through just going to your health food store and getting one of those tests. So it's just a little bit more tracking on your end for that. You're on this call or you're listening to the recording and you're like, what is the MetaPWR system? I have no idea what you're talking about. You guys have shared all this great information. I just want to share really quickly the steps. It was created as a system to take as a system because it works as a system, right? So the MetaPWR blend you can put in your water. I've shared, actually, you can do it sublingually under your tongue, and it works incredibly well that way, especially for people who might have heartburn and that stuff like that goes along with that. They do have the gum and the soft gels. I take 2 soft gels in the morning and sometimes 2 at lunch. The gum and the beadlets I take because I do, in the past, I have dealt with the hangry, right? But now that my glucose levels have stabilized, I rarely actually get that anymore. So I attest it to this blend right here. And then the shrinking of the fat cells, that is what this blend does. And so then the MetaPWR Assist, which you've heard us talking about on this call, is the glucose help, right? So I like to, Philip had talked about putting out fires. I like to say it's like, getting off the roller coaster. We shoot up and then we shoot down, and then we shoot up and shoot down. You guys, we can do this all the time to ourselves, and no wonder why our cells are aging, right? It's because we're on this roller coaster with our glucose levels. I mean, I get tired thinking about it. Like, I can't imagine how our cells actually deal with this. So we want to regenerate those cells. We want to improve them, right? That's why they call it aging backwards, is because we want to do all the right things so that it can release the stored fat the trapped fat is what I like to say, so that we can actually flush that out with the MetaPWR oil and get rid of it from our system and do great things with it. And no wonder why we're seeing people with, less wrinkles and that sort of thing. And that's where the advantage comes in, right? The collagen and the NMN. Some people are like, I don't know what NMN does. Just know that it is incredible for our NAD levels in our body so that we can feel the difference, right? It is our cellular energy and it works wonders. So give it a try. Only drink it in about 4 ounces of water and just shoot it, just take it. It will be super helpful for your body. Some people take it in the morning, some people take it at night. If you're 60 and over or 50 and over, they say to take it towards the end of the day because it seems to help people better that way. I'm not that age, so I can't tell you if it does or not, but what I can tell you is that you can do it for yourself and see what works. So play around with it. Don't be afraid to. There is no right or wrong way to do this system. It's just they give you a sample of things to do. You've heard from several people tonight that have different ways of doing it, and they have results, right? So you just have to be consistent and discipline. I like that word that Jason talked about. Is the discipline, and I say consistency, because you will see the difference. And I like to say, choose your hard, right? If this is hard, really, I mean, I feel like being 40 pounds overweight was harder than this, or 30 pounds, I choose my hard, and that's where I've decided that my health is important enough to me to make these changes. So why is the MetaPWR kit the best deal? If you break this down, they used to have a $35 fee, but it's waived unless you buy it through doTERRA online, and it's not waived. So typically this kit would be $237.25, but it's only $179. So it's actually a savings below wholesale of $58.25. This is a fantastic deal, you guys. So make sure whoever invited you to this call, make sure that you get in touch with them if you're interested. We will make sure you get what you need and have the biggest savings possible. Thank you for being with me tonight. I'm going to stop the recording, and if there's any questions, we'll feel free to answer them. But otherwise, we'll see you next month.